The coffee shop fell silent as he looked up from his laptop. Their eyes met across the crowded space, and in that moment, neither could have imagined how their lives would intertwine. But the secret she carried would change everything. "Of course," David replied, gesturing to the empty chair across from him. "Please, join me." The young woman smiled gratefully, maneuvering her crutches with practiced ease as she approached. David noticed her missing leg but didn't stare, instead quickly saving his work and closing his laptop to make space. As a single father of two, he'd learned that kindness cost nothing, and this stranger looked like she could use a friendly face. "I'm Ellie," she said, settling into the chair and propping her crutches against the table. "Thanks for sharing. This place is packed today." "David," he offered with a warm smile. "And it's no problem at all. I was just finishing up some work before picking up my kids from school." Ellie's eyes brightened at the mention of children. "How old are they?" "Emma's 8 and Jake's 6, David said, unable to keep the pride from his voice. He pulled out his phone to show her a recent photo of two grinning children with his same dark curly hair and warm brown eyes. "They're beautiful," Ellie said softly, studying the picture with an intensity that struck David as unusual. Her fingers trembled slightly as she handed the phone back. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern creeping into his voice. Ellie took a deep breath, her eyes suddenly glistening with unshed tears. "Actually, no. I'm not okay at all. And I think your children might be the reason." David felt his heart drop. What could this stranger possibly have to do with Emma and Jake? He leaned forward, his protective instincts flaring. "What do you mean?" Before Ellie could answer, her phone rang. She glanced at it and her face paled. "I'm sorry, I have to take this. It's my doctor." She answered quickly, turning slightly away from David as she spoke in hushed tones. David watched her face transform from worry to shock, her hand covering her mouth as she whispered, "Are you certain?" After another moment, she ended the call and turned back to him, her expression unreadable. "I'm sorry about that," she said, her voice steadier than before. "Where were we?" "You were about to tell me something about my children," David reminded her, unable to hide the edge in his voice. Ellie nodded slowly. "Right. This is going to sound crazy, and I wouldn't blame you if you walked away right now. But 3 years ago, I was in a terrible car accident. I lost my leg, but I also received a blood transfusion that saved my life." David listened, confused about where this was heading. "The thing is," Ellie continued, "I've been having these dreams. Vivid dreams about 2 children I've never met. I started drawing their faces." She reached into her bag and pulled out a sketchbook, flipping it open to reveal dozens of drawings. David's blood ran cold. Staring back at him from the pages were perfect renditions of Emma and Jake. Some showed them playing, others sleeping, all capturing their expressions with uncanny accuracy. It was impossible. No stranger could know his children's faces with such intimacy. "How did you?" he began, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Ellie admitted. "But when I saw you sitting here, I recognized you from my dreams too. And then when you showed me their photo, I knew I wasn't crazy." She paused, watching his face carefully. "David, I think somehow, through that blood transfusion, I received something more than just blood. The doctors can't explain it, but I've been researching cellular memory. Some recipients of organ donations report memories or preferences from their donors." David's mind raced. 3 years ago, his late wife Lisa had been in a serious accident too. She'd survived initially but passed away 6 months later from complications. She had been a regular blood donor. "My wife," he said slowly, the pieces falling into place. "She died 3 years ago. She always donated blood." Ellie's eyes widened. "The timing matches. My accident was in April. Lisa's was in March," David whispered. The coincidence was too perfect to ignore, yet too bizarre to accept. David felt lightheaded, caught between disbelief and a strange sense of fate. If what Ellie suggested was true, she carried a part of Lisa within her, the mother his children had lost before they could truly know her. "I know this is overwhelming," Ellie said gently. "I debated for weeks whether to try to find you after I started having these dreams. But something kept pushing me forward, like I had a responsibility to at least tell you." David ran his hands through his hair, trying to process everything. "I don't know what to say. This is insane," Ellie offered with a small smile. "Believe me, I know. That's why I've been seeing specialists. The call just now, my doctor confirmed some unusual cellular activity in my blood work. They want to do more tests." David checked his watch, suddenly remembering his children. "I need to pick up Emma and Jake soon." "Of course," Ellie said quickly, gathering her things. "I've dumped enough on you for one day. Here's my number, if you ever want to talk more about this." She scribbled on a napkin and slid it across the table. As she prepared to leave, David found himself saying, "Wait. Would you like to meet them?" The word surprised even him. Was he making a terrible mistake? But something in his gut told him this connection wasn't random. If Ellie truly shared some inexplicable bond with his late wife, perhaps his children deserved to know her. Ellie's face lit up with hope, but uncertainty clouded her expression. "Are you sure? I don't want to intrude on your family." "I'm not sure of anything right now," David admitted. "But Lisa would have wanted me to follow my instincts, and right now they're telling me this matters." They agreed to meet at a park near the school the following day. As Ellie left the coffee shop, David sat in stunned silence, wondering if he'd just made the most important decision since becoming a single parent, or the most foolish one. That night, after tucking his children into bed, David pulled out an old photo album. He hadn't looked at these pictures in months, the pain still too raw. Flipping through images of Lisa, he searched for any sign, any clue that might explain the connection to Ellie. In one photo, Lisa smiled broadly at the camera, her arm around a friend at a blood drive. "Giving life," read the banner behind them. The next day dawned bright and clear. David felt a nervous energy as he picked up Emma and Jake from school, carefully explaining that they were going to meet a new friend at the park. "Is she your girlfriend, Daddy?" Emma asked with the directness only children possess. "No, sweetheart," David replied, smiling despite his nerves. "She's just someone I think you might like to meet." When they arrived at the park, Ellie was already there, sitting on a bench near the playground. She waved hesitantly as they approached. David noticed she'd worn a prosthetic leg today instead of using crutches. "Hi," she said, her voice soft as the children regarded her curiously. "You must be Emma and Jake. Your dad has told me so much about you." Emma, always the more outgoing of the two, stepped forward. "What happened to your leg?" "Emma." David admonished, but Ellie laughed. "It's okay," she assured him before addressing Emma. "I was in an accident, and the doctors couldn't save my leg. But I got this cool robot one instead." She tapped her prosthetic, which made a hollow sound. "Can you run with it?" Jake asked, speaking for the first time. "I sure can," Ellie replied. "Want to see?" The children nodded eagerly, and to David's amazement, Ellie stood and demonstrated a light jog across the grass. Emma and Jake clapped, their initial shyness forgotten. "Race you to the swings," Emma challenged, and before David could intervene, all three were off, Ellie keeping pace with a natural ease that belied her disability. David watched from the bench, a complex emotion swelling in his chest. There was something in the way Ellie interacted with his children that felt familiar, the tilt of her head when she listened to Jake's rambling story, the patient way she helped Emma pump her legs on the swing. These were Lisa's mannerisms, subtle but unmistakable. After an hour of play, the children had fully embraced Ellie. When Jake skinned his knee after a tumble from the monkey bars, she knew exactly how to comfort him, with the same silly joke about brave knights that Lisa had always used. "How did you know to say that?" David asked quietly when Jake had run off to rejoin his sister. Ellie looked troubled. "I don't know. It just came out. That's been happening a lot lately, saying or knowing things I shouldn't." When it was time to leave, both Emma and Jake begged to see Ellie again. "Can she come for dinner, Daddy? Please?" Emma pleaded, her eyes wide. David looked at Ellie, who seemed equally surprised by the children's attachment. "Would you like to join us sometime?" he asked. "I'd love that," she replied, her smile genuine but tinged with something like fear. "But David, there's something else I need to tell you first. Something I learned from that doctor's call yesterday." The seriousness in her tone made David's stomach clench. "Kids, go play on the slide for 5 more minutes while I talk to Miss Ellie, okay?" Once the children were out of earshot, Ellie took a deep breath. "The tests they've been running, they found something unusual. The doctors think the blood transfusion triggered a rare condition. My body is rejecting the blood, even after all this time." David felt his heart sink. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm sick," Ellie said simply. "And getting sicker. They're trying experimental treatments, but—" She trailed off, leaving the implication hanging in the air. "How long?" David asked, the question barely audible. "They don't know for sure. Maybe a year, maybe less." The cruel irony wasn't lost on David. Just as this mysterious connection had brought Ellie into their lives, it might also take her away, just as it had taken Lisa. "I understand if you want to keep your distance," Ellie continued. "The last thing your children need is another loss." David was silent for a long moment, watching Emma push Jake on the swing, their laughter carrying across the park. Finally, he turned back to Ellie. 3 years ago, I had to tell my children that their mother wasn't coming home. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Since then, I've tried to protect them from any more pain." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "But I've also tried to teach them that life is precious because it's fleeting. That connections matter, even when they hurt." Ellie listened, her eyes filling with tears. "I don't know what this is between us," David continued. "I don't know if you really carry some part of Lisa with you, or if it's just an incredible coincidence. But I do know that my children lit up today in a way I haven't seen in years. And I think that matters." "So what are you saying?" Ellie asked. "I'm saying yes to dinner," David replied. "And to whatever time we have. We'll figure out the rest as we go." The first dinner at David's home was both awkward and wonderful. Ellie arrived with a homemade apple pie, Lisa's recipe, though she didn't realize it until David mentioned it was his late wife's specialty. The coincidence hung in the air between them, but the children's excited chatter soon dispelled the tension. After dinner, Emma led Ellie to her room, proudly showing off her butterfly collection and the framed photo of her mother. "Daddy says I look like her," Emma said proudly. "You do," Ellie agreed, feeling a strange tug in her chest. "You have her smile." Later, after the children were in bed, David and Ellie sat in the living room, mugs of tea warming their hands. "They adore you," David said, breaking the comfortable silence. "They're amazing kids," Ellie replied. "You've done a wonderful job with them." David shook his head. "Some days I feel like I'm just barely keeping it together. Being both mom and dad, it's not easy." "I can't imagine," Ellie said. Then, hesitantly, "Can I ask about Lisa? How did you meet?" David told her about meeting Lisa in college, about her career as a pediatrician, and about the drunk driver who had caused the accident. The worst part was explaining it to the kids. Emma was old enough to understand that mommy wasn't coming back, but Jake, he kept asking when she'd be home. Ellie reached across the space between them, taking David's hand. The gesture felt natural, comforting. You've given them stability and love. That's everything. In the weeks that followed, Ellie became a regular presence in their lives. She started treatment with Dr. Winters, a specialist in unusual immune responses who believed she might be able to help Ellie's condition. The treatment was experimental, filtering Ellie's blood to remove the antibodies causing the rejection response. As her health improved, Ellie noticed her dreams of Lisa becoming less vivid. She worried that the connection might be fading, that the treatment saving her life might be severing the mysterious bond that had brought her to David and the children. One night, she dreamed of Lisa directly, not experiencing memories through her eyes as before, but seeing her clearly, as if they were two separate people meeting. "You're saving them," Lisa said, her voice clear and kind. "All three of them." "I'm trying," Ellie replied. "But I'm afraid of losing you, of losing this connection." Lisa smiled. "You won't lose it. It's part of you now, just as they are." Ellie woke with tears on her face but a strange sense of peace in her heart. Whether the dream was her subconscious processing her fears or something more mystical, the message resonated: love was what mattered, not its origins. 6 months later, Ellie's health had stabilized. Dr. Winters declared the treatment a success and published a paper on cellular memory in blood transfusion recipients, with Ellie as her primary case study. The dreams of Lisa continued occasionally, gentle reminders rather than immersive experiences. On a beautiful spring day, David took Ellie back to the park where they'd first brought the children to meet her. As Emma and Jake played on the swings, he pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "It's not what you think," he said quickly, opening the box to reveal not a ring but a delicate silver locket. "At least, not yet. That's coming, if you want it. But first, this." Inside the locket was a tiny photograph of Emma and Jake on one side, and on the other, a small red stone. "It's a ruby," David explained. "Emma's birthstone. But also, it's the color of blood. The blood that brought you to us, that connected us in ways science can't fully explain." Ellie felt tears welling in her eyes as she traced the stone with her fingertip. "I want you to know," David continued, "that whatever happens, whether the dreams fade completely or stay with you forever, what we have now is real. The children love you. I love you. Not because of Lisa or cellular memory or fate, but because of who you are." Ellie closed the locket and let David fasten it around her neck. "I love you too," she said simply. "All of you. And I'm not afraid anymore." From the playground, Emma called for them to watch her go down the slide. They walked hand in hand to join the children, a family formed through tragedy and miracle, science and mystery, blood and love. 1 year later, they were married in that same park, with Emma as flower girl and Jake proudly carrying the rings. As they exchanged vows, Ellie felt the weight of the locket against her chest, a reminder of the extraordinary chain of events that had brought them together. That night, after the children were asleep, David and Ellie stood on the porch of their home, looking up at the stars. "Do you think she knows?" Ellie asked softly. "Lisa. Do you think she knows how happy we are?" David was quiet for a moment, his arm around Ellie's waist. "I think part of her is here with us," he finally said. "Not just in the blood you carry or the memories you've shared, but in the love that surrounds this family. And yes, I think she knows." Ellie leaned her head against his shoulder, content. The journey had been extraordinary, from a chance meeting in a coffee shop to the complex intertwining of lives, blood, and destiny. "I used to think losing my leg was the worst thing that could happen to me," Ellie said softly. "Now I see it was just the beginning of finding everything I never knew I wanted." David squeezed her hand. "Life has a strange way of bringing us exactly where we need to be, even through the most painful paths." Inside the house, their family slept peacefully, Emma and Jake, and the new life growing inside Ellie, just beginning to make its presence known. She hadn't told David yet, she would tomorrow. Another miracle, another connection, another chapter in their extraordinary story. Some might call it coincidence, others fate. Scientists might speak of cellular memory, spiritualists of souls intertwined. But for Ellie and David, the explanation mattered less than the reality they lived each day, that from tragedy had come healing, from loss had come finding, and from a simple question, "Can I share this table?" had come the answer to prayers they hadn't even known they were making. Dr. Winters continued her research, using Ellie's case to help others with similar conditions. Though the medical community remained skeptical about cellular memory, more cases emerged, recipients of blood transfusions or organ donations who inexplicably carried traits, memories, or connections from their donors. For Emma and Jake, the story of how Ellie came into their lives became a cherished family tale. They grew up understanding that family could be formed in mysterious ways, that love transcended simple biology, and that their mother's final gift had been bringing Ellie to them. On Emma's 16th birthday, David and Ellie gave her a locket matching the one Ellie wore, a ruby on one side and a photo of Lisa on the other. "So you always remember both of the women who love you," David explained as Emma's eyes filled with tears. Jake received a similar gift when he turned 16, a watch that had belonged to his grandfather, with a small ruby set into the back of the case. The dreams never completely disappeared for Ellie. They became rare, appearing only at significant moments: the birth of their daughter Lily, Emma's high school graduation, Jake's first heartbreak. Each time, Lisa's presence felt like a blessing rather than an intrusion, a reminder of the extraordinary connection that had brought healing to them all. Scientists never fully explained what had happened between Ellie and Lisa's blood. Some theories suggested that certain types of consciousness might exist at a cellular level, that memories and emotions could be carried in ways modern medicine had yet to understand. Others dismissed it as coincidence combined with suggestion and wishful thinking. But on quiet evenings, when the family gathered on their porch to watch the sunset, none of the explanations seemed to matter. What mattered was the love they had built, the family they had become, and the remarkable journey that had brought them together. And somewhere, perhaps beyond the stars they gazed upon, Lisa smiled. If you found this story touching, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel for more heartfelt stories that explore the unexpected connections that shape our lives. Sometimes the most beautiful beginnings come from chance encounters and the courage to say yes to the unknown.